Hello and welcome to Business 360. I'm Arundhati Ramnan and here are the top headlines that we're tracking for you this evening. Stock markets fall for the seventh straight session. Sensex loses nearly 3,200 points. Nifty loses over 70 points. All sectoral indices except Nifty Bank end in the red. Adani Group stocks remain under pressure as the group loses 34,000 crore rupees in market capitalization today. Investor wealth to the tune of 12.4 lakh crore rupees has been wiped out in just the last 1 month.
I don't think that any single group makes, carves off the history of this nation.
Veteran banker KV Kamath says there is no loss of confidence in the Adani crisis. Also adds that no single group or company can write the history of a nation. Sources tell CNBC-TV18 that the Bharti Group had shown interest in buying Paytm's stake, but talks collapsed last month. Sources say that Paytm did not want to give up management control, also did not see a strategic alliance in the payments business. Paytm shares rallied 3% in trade. Air India MD and CEO Campbell Wilson says that the Air India-Vistara merger is yet to get CCI approval, highlights that the intention is to end up with one full-service airline and one low-cost airline in the group. Campbell says that 6 new A350 planes would join the Air India fleet by year-end, adds that they have committed $400 million for the refurbishment of its wide-body aircraft. Aircraft lessor Carlyle Aviation gets 7.5% stake in SpiceJet after restructuring over $100 million of outstanding dues. SpiceJet board seeks shareholders' approval to raise fresh funds of up to 2,500 crore rupees from qualified institutional buyers. India is the place to be, says the global CEO of software and technology solutions company SAP, promises to accelerate investment and says he is a big believer in the India story. Nagaland and Meghalaya go to polls. Meghalaya Chief Minister Conrad Sangma's NPP faces off against the BJP, Congress and the Trinamool Congress. Nagaland CM Nufio Rio's NDPP and the BJP are contesting the polls in alliance in Nagaland. The Naga People's Front, Congress and a host of other parties are in the fray. Results for all three states, including Tripura, will be announced on the 2nd of March. Ukraine's armed forces say that the Russian offensive along the front line continues as raid sirens go off in Kiev. Zelensky fires a top military commander leading the fight in the Donbas region, gives no reason for the move. United States warns China of serious consequences if it provides arms to support Russia's invasion. Let's start with the market action, where the Sensex and the Nifty declined for the 7th straight session. Sensex lost over 175 points and the Nifty lost over 70 points. Barring the Nifty Bank, every sectoral index ended in the red. Mid-caps also fell in tandem with the blue chips. BSE companies saw their market capitalization erode by 2 lakh crore rupees today. All in all, in the last 7 sessions, investor wealth to the tune of 10 lakh crore rupees has been wiped out. Prashant Nair is here with all of the market action. Prashant?
For the 8th day in a row, the market was under pressure. The Nifty lost, did not quite end at the low point of the day. There was a significant bounce, but it was under pressure once again. And this, of course, was after the very weak handoff that we got from Wall Street on Friday, especially with the Nasdaq down sharply, dollar up and yields higher as well. Banks are one area which saw recovery. They've been big underperformer all of last week, but they were strong, both the private and the public bank space. I'll get to those specific names in a bit. Sectorally speaking, let's start with what lost. Metals as a pocket lost, IT was down, and autos as a pack was sharply lower as well. As I said, PSU and private banks both were higher. The index itself ending about 0.75% in the green. Nifty losses, starting Adani Enterprises saw a sharp cut. Bajaj Auto, there was a production cut which impacted the name. UPL, Tata Steel, Infosys and Eicher Motors were some of the other names which were down and out. Banks did well, as I said, so ICICI Bank, Kotak Bank and SBI pulled in the other direction as opposed to the other names that I mentioned earlier. The broader markets had it bad. So 3:1, more than 3:1, declines to advances ratio. The market breadth was actually pretty poor. Names like Z lost quite a bit. Mphasis, Mahindra CIE, Uflex, Jindal SAW, Keynes, JK Lakshmi, Sunflag, Mirza International, and so on and so forth. These are the heavy volume-led losses that we had. Gains coming through in Loda, RHIM, Sanofi, Tube Investments, and a few others as well. But as I said, more down than up in terms of the broader market session, mid-cap, small caps included. I think many will be hoping that after testing the budget day low and closing around it, the market finds some stability. A lot of it, I think, will depend on how much more selling there is. We are likely to see both from locals and the foreign institutional investors. And number two, whether the global setup, which is looking a little wobbly with the dollar marching upwards, stabilizes or not. I think we'll find out when we come back tomorrow morning. Back to you.
Absolutely, Prashant. Many thanks for those details. Now, the Adani Group stocks remain under pressure. All of the Adani Group stocks, except for Adani Ports, ended the day in the red. Adani Total Gas has lost 82% of its value in a month. Adani Green and Adani Transmission have seen their market capitalization erode by 75% since the Hindenburg report was released on the 24th of January. The 10 Adani stocks have seen their market capitalization erode by more than 12.4 lakh crore rupees. Currently, the market cap of the company stands at 6.8 lakh crore rupees. Meanwhile, a report by Bernstein said that March to September would be the real test with regard to debt repayment and refinancing for the Adani Group. Vivek Iyer is here with all of those details. Vivek, what will be the biggest challenges for these group companies at this point?
Today, Bernstein has come out with a report, and what they're saying is that the key timeline is to watch out for is going to be March to September of 2024, which is going to be the key challenge as far as the group is concerned in terms of the debt repayment schedule that they have. So number one, what's actually happening is a leverage of almost $3 billion taken for the Ambuja acquisition matures in March 2024. The Ambuja warrants, where it requires almost 15,000 crore of fund infusion, that is expiring by April 2024. The Ambuja second tranche of close to $1 billion matures September 2024. Adani Ports, 650 million bond, is actually maturing in July 2024, and this is an unsecured, development. Adani Green Bond Holding Company. Now, this is very important. $750 million maturing in September 2024. And what Bernstein is saying is that this is going to be the largest challenge, the Adani Green Holding Bond. Now, what they also add is that while Ambuja Cements and Ports business have strong assets, the timing of the maturity as far as Ambuja is concerned, they believe can put a strain as far as growth is concerned for the company, as well as the liquidity plans that they have in store as far as their own capex is concerned.
All right, Vivek, many thanks for those details. Meanwhile, veteran banker KV Kamath says there is no loss of confidence in the Adani crisis. Also adds that no single group or company can write the history of a nation. Take a look.
What does the current crisis with the Adani Group stocks and the Adani Group mean from an economic point of view?
Yeah, I think, firstly, I don't want to talk about any specific group, Shireen. The market is functioning, the banks are functioning. The rest of it is, I do not really want to comment on. I will only say this in a larger context that, my 50 years plus of being in the banking business, 52 years to be precise, I don't think that any single group makes, or carves off the history of this nation. So I have, really speaking, no concern that overall India will continue on its path of progress at the pace we have outlined. That's all I want to say. And I don't see any loss of confidence in India consequent to these.
And you can catch that entire conversation with KV Kamath, chairperson of the National Bank for Finance, Infrastructure and Development, at 5:30 p.m. and 9:30 p.m. right here on CNBC-TV18. On to all the action from the commodity market. Brent prices hover around the $83 to $85 per barrel mark. Prices remained on a tight leash, courtesy of firm dollar. Fears of a recession offset gains arising from Russia's plans to deepen oil supply cuts. On to a CNBC-TV18 exclusive. Telecom major Bharti Airtel was in talks with Paytm to buy stake in the company. However, the deal collapsed last month. Sources told CNBC-TV18 that Paytm declined to give up management control to Bharti Airtel. Nisha Podar joins us now with the details. Nisha, what are your sources telling you, and why did the deal not go through?
That's right. Sources with direct knowledge who know about the developments in both the companies, Bharti Group as well as Paytm, have shared with us that there was indeed an exploratory deal talk between Bharti Group as well as Paytm in the month of January. But the deal talks did not continue and it collapsed. And at the current moment, there is no transaction on the table or no deal talks between these two parties, is what we gather from sources with direct knowledge. Now, that is a clarity on the present status of any such transaction. Regarding also addressing the reports which have been speculating about a transaction. But on the other hand, what really transpired is that Bharti Group, as we understand from direct sources, had been interested in buying a stake in the parent company Paytm, even though they have a common business of payments bank, which is under Bharti Airtel as well as under Paytm. So even though they have commonality when it comes to business, it was the parent company Paytm in which Bharti Group was interested in probably exploring a stake buy, but the deal talks collapsed, as we gather from sources, because Paytm management was not keen on giving up the management control. Also, we gather that Paytm does not think that there is a strategic alliance even in payments bank business between Bharti Group as well as Paytm, because their models of doing this business are completely different. So those are the important aspects because of which the deal talks did not fructify and had collapsed in the last month. And at the moment, we gather there are no deal talks on between Bharti Group as well as Paytm. Time will only tell if at all there is a revival in this direction. But also remember that Ant Group as well as SoftBank put together own about 38% stake in the company, and Ant Group, the single largest shareholder, will have to shave off some bit of their stake because of the SEBI norms, which does not allow it to have a stake of 25%. So they'll have to bring it down and they'll have to sell some part of the stake. But experts do also point out, with such a large stake between two influential investors, well, they will also play a pivotal role in any deal transaction in future as well for Paytm.
Right, so no deal for now between Bharti Group and Paytm. Many thanks for those details, Nisha. Air India CEO and MD Campbell Wilson said that there is unprecedented opportunity for the airline after the mega order pipeline with Airbus and Boeing. Speaking at a press conference today, Wilson said that 6 new A350 planes will join the Air India fleet by year end. He said that the merger between Air India and Vistara is currently going through the regulatory approval process. Danish Anand joins us now with the details. Danish, you were there at the press conference. Take us through the key contours of the Air India expansion plan.
Well, a year after completing the takeover of Air India, the airline is in its second phase of the transformation journey. For Air India, 2023 will be all about adding more planes to its fleet, refurbishing the old ones, and increased hiring across departments. AI recently placed a big order of 470 aircraft, and from this year, the company will start getting deliveries with 6 brand new A350s, among the first ones to reach India. The airline is also targeting mid-2024 to complete its process of refurbishing its existing fleet of wide-body planes, and is confident that flying in Air India from next year will be very new and a different experience. With synergies between Air Asia and Air India Express, and with the merger of Air India and Vistara, the airline's intention is to end up with one full-service airline and one low-cost airline in the group. Air India feels that both Air India and Vistara have a rich heritage, but in the long term, Air India will be the mother brand. Listen in to what Air India MD and CEO Campbell Wilson had to say.
The integration of Air India and Vistara needs to go through a regulatory approval process. There are 3 steps to that process. One is competition clearance. The second is from a DGCA regulatory aviation perspective. And the third is obviously the merger of the 2 companies. We are in the process of the first phase, seeking competition clearance. But in anticipation of this, we are working together with some external parties to work on what are the areas of opportunity in an integrated business.
Meanwhile, sources tell CNBC-TV18 that around 50 planes of Indigo and Go First were grounded due to issues related to its Pratt & Whitney engines. Airlines are now looking at wet leasing options to avoid disruptions. Low-cost airline SpiceJet has given 7.5% of its equity to aircraft lessor Carlyle Aviation after restructuring over $100 million of outstanding dues. The airline will also transfer compulsory converted debentures of Spice Express to demerge its cargo business into a new company. The airline is also looking to raise 2,500 crore rupees from qualified institutional buyers and has sought shareholders' approval for the same. India is the place to be, says the global CEO of software and technology solutions company SAP, promises to accelerate investments and says he's a big believer in the India story.
For a lot of German companies, including SAP, India is the place to be. And first of all, what we see and where we are very optimistic about is about the future growth of the economy in India. So we see further acceleration. We see further investments also coming from Germany to India. Of course, in the tech space, but also in other industries like manufacturing. We now already operate our cloud business here in India. We will double down on our cloud infrastructure. We will grow the size of our business here, also people related. So we have currently around about 15,000 people, and also this, the size of our population here will grow by a significant amount in the years to come.
And Bajaj Auto fell over 5% on reports that the auto major has cut production across its two-wheeler and three-wheeler segments by up to 25% across its export-focused plants. The company said the decision was triggered by uncertainties in Nigeria, which is the company's biggest export market. Bajaj Auto management told CNBC-TV18 that export production had been lower for all two-wheeler exporters for the last few months. And consumer-facing businesses see an uptick in demand, marking a recovery from the COVID slump. Indian Hotels MD and CEO Puneet Chhatwal has said that the company is seeing recovery aided by strong leisure and business travels. Meanwhile, Berger Paints expects double-digit volume and value growth in FY24. Take a look.
It would be fair to say that leisure across the globe and in all domestic markets has led the recovery in the sector which was demolished during COVID times. And the leisure is evolving in a very new dimension, because the term bleisure was coined maybe 10, 15 years ago, but we did not see much of it. So now we see that people are combining business, leisure. Business is more than 100%. For us, it's definitely gone beyond 100.
Q4 is a normalized base, and therefore we expect double-digit volume growth and value growth in Q4. So if you look at the demand scenario, it seems to be fairly okay. Earlier, the urban centers were doing much better. But in February, it's the upcountry also, which is doing relatively better than what it was doing earlier.
On that note, it is time for us to head into a short break. But coming up next, Ukraine's armed forces say that the Russian offensive along the front line continues as raid sirens go off in Kiev. Details when we return. Welcome back. You're still with us on Business 360. Now, Ukraine says that the Russian offensive along the front line continues as air raid sirens go off in Kyiv. Ukrainian President Zelensky has fired a top military commander leading the fight in the Donbas region, but gave no reason for the move. Russian President Putin, meanwhile, has accused the West of seeking to dismember Russia and fragment it into weak mini-states. CNBC-TV18 Sanjay Suri reports from Kherson airfield, which has now turned into a battlefield.
This is what was Kherson Airport. This is how an airfield became a battlefield.
The Russians took it within 3 days of their invasion, but the airport lay within range of Ukrainian artillery from neighboring Mykolaiv that the Russians could not take. The Ukrainians inflicted heavy losses on the Russians and their aircraft parked at the airport. But after being forced out in November, the Russians now continue to shell the airport and its neighborhood to make sure that the Ukrainians cannot use it.
Kherson will struggle to get back on its feet again, and that prospect appears a very distant dream indeed. And here we hear shelling continuing.
Both the Russians and the Ukrainians have taken heavy losses at this airport, but Russians clearly had the worst of it. The airport became a graveyard for Russian aircraft and armor over a period of 6 months since the invasion. Worse followed for the Russians when the Ukrainians launched their counteroffensive and stormed the airport.
This is also where a lot of Russian troops who had invaded and taken over were attacked and killed. Russians had entrenched themselves inside the airport terminal. They arrived in buses to reinforce themselves, and you can see the burnt out remains of those buses still here. And this is where they were cornered, and this is where the Ukrainians led a very successful counterattack on the Russian troops who had taken over this airport. And of course, in all that fighting and in all that destruction, nothing remains now of this airport terminal.
And that's the latest from Ukraine. And before we end, renowned stock market analyst Ashwini Gujral has died at the age of 52. Gujral used to prominently feature on CNBC-TV18 to provide technical analysis in daily